Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is doing very well today. Welcome to session one of our three-part webinar series looking at AI in marketing localization. Really grateful for you all joining us today. It's going to be a great session, no doubt. And I'm really excited to dig into today's topic of our first session in the webinar series, which is all about scaling multilingual marketing content with AI from campaigns to product pages. I'm very excited to share with you lots of actionable insights and tips today around a topic that has probably hit all of us on this call, whether you're working in AI, translation, marketing content, or content creation by storm, which is AI. The session will be recorded, so for anyone who's joining us or having to leave us a bit early, you will receive a copy of the recording at the very end, so please don't worry about that. We'll also be having time for questions at the end, so please don't hesitate to ask any questions in the chat throughout, and we will look at those as soon as possible towards the end. But first, let me introduce myself. First of all, I'm just going to do a quick tech check. Can everyone see my screen, first of all? Anyone could be so kind to put that in the chat just to make sure the tech is working. That would be fantastic. Yes, thank you very much. That's much appreciated. So to introduce myself, I'm James. I'm head of commercial at Comtech Translations. For those unfamiliar with Comtech Translations, we are a UK-based, award-winning language translation and culture agency working in over 250 languages, supporting global brands communicate with their audiences worldwide. For myself personally, I have over 14 years of experience in translation and marketing localization specifically. I've had the pleasure of working with brands throughout my career, such as Condé Nast, Aston Martin, Aesop, and Tommy Tippy, to name but a few names, specifically on their marketing, e-commerce, and website translation requirements. But I've also had lots of experience working with other B2C and B2B brands alongside the agencies working for them as well. A few quick facts about me. So when I'm not doing my work for Comtech, I am also very privileged to be vice chair of the Association of Translation Companies, with essentially looking after industry best practice for the association, along with organising our events. I'm also a speaker of French, German, and Spanish, and obviously English. So very familiar with all things languages. And I guess a fun fact, because we all have a fun fact, is that I play touch rugby for an inclusive team here in Warwickshire, and I also help run the club as well. But enough about me. Let's look at our session for today and what we'll be covering. So 7 topics on the agenda for today. First of all, we're going to look at how to categorize your content and determine the best approach for translation, given all the new solutions, particularly AI solutions that are available on the market today. We're going to be looking at the 4 foundations of a solid translation strategy, why AI is changing the game for translation. I'm sure it has for your industries as well. What are the 3 most common translation approaches using AI, and how do they work? What are they best used for? When and why we still need human linguists. Spoiler alert, we're not going anywhere anytime soon. We're also going to look at the takeaways, which are 7 skip tips to scale with confidence. And also we'll be having time for Q&A at the end. So as mentioned, please use the chat function or the Q&A function and drop your questions in. I'll get round to them at the end. So let's get started with looking at taking a step back and looking at your translation strategy. So I always like to advise my clients that before charging ahead with translation and going ahead and just, getting started and translating your content without really realizing what best approach is, it's always advisable to take a step back and look at your strategy, not just for your content, but also for how that content is going to be localized for your global markets. And with AI in the mix nowadays for translation and what feels like a multitude of options, it can feel like a bit of a headache and a bit confusing. So it's more important than ever to ensure that you're choosing the right solution to make sure your translations are fit for purpose and also get you the quality level that you need for your business and your audience. And while AI can be great for many types of content, it's not suitable for everything. But at the same time, though, it's equally important to note that there's more data out there than ever. Take a look at this graph on screen, which shows how much data has grown on the internet in the last 2 decades. It's kind of overwhelming when we compare it with 2010. A couple of key stats for you that help explain the context for the current situation regarding content. In 2025, so this year, the internet will reach 182 zettabytes of content, which is insane. I didn't know zettabyte was a word before researching for this webinar, but essentially, 1 zettabyte is 1 trillion gigabytes. What's more is that by 2028, so over the next 3 years, more data will be created, captured, and replicated in these next 3 years than the rest of human history. So there is a hell of a lot of data out there that needs to be translated. And with this in mind, it's not physically possible or financially viable for brands to stick to traditional translation methods for all of their content. So with this in mind, what is a solution? The solution is, and I'm here to tell you, is content categorization. So not all content is created equally with the same purpose in mind. We recommend looking at your content against your objectives and working out with the assistance of your translation partner which solution matches the content based on various criteria. Here are 5 reasons why creating a framework for your content and categorizing it accordingly is important. So first of all, every piece of content is going to have a different level of ROI for your business. Some content will be more valuable to your business than others. So that's a really good place to start. Where is sensible to invest money in high quality translation as opposed to more cost-effective methods? There'll also be value deciding factors that are specific to your business and your business alone. And here are a few examples. First of all, your audience. How big is your audience? Are you translating for one of your core markets or not? Are you translating a website page that's within your top 10 most trafficked pages, or is it just a page of a few hits? Proximity to revenue generation. So are you translating, in the case of a website, a page regarding the checkout flow, or is it an FAQ page perhaps hidden in the website for SEO purposes? Who's your customer? Again, in the case of internal comms, are your audience your internal team, or are they your customers? That's a quite simple one as part of the framework. And also, how sensitive is the content? Are we talking about an above-the-line campaign tagline or a broadcast email where the open rate might be quite low? The trick is when it comes to working out which approach to take for each of piece of content is to match effort to reward. So making sure you're investing in the highest quality translation approaches for the content that's going to generate you the most ROI. If you don't, you'll overspend in some areas. And as mentioned, there's a lot of content out there. It's not really financially viable to do everything in the top polished service level. But equally, you can underinvest and get things wrong. So by investing in some of the cheaper translation solutions or faster ones, you could actually be compromising quality and thereby affecting customer experience and ROI. So let's have a look at a framework next, what that looks like in practice. So on the screen, we have the lovely content categorization. Oh, sorry, go back. Content categorization framework that we use here at Comtech. Now, it's worth saying within this pyramid, there are lots of different options, but for the purposes of this webinar, I broke it down into 3. So 3 tiers based on what levels of ROI you're looking for and what the type of content is. So level 1 at the bottom of the pyramid is looking at considering using automated or machine translation for your translations. Content where this could be suitable is instructional, functional, low risk, simple copy where good enough is really good enough. Some examples where customers have opted for this solution can include product descriptions, particularly for internal PIM systems or really simple language, FAQ pages that are there for SEO purposes and SEO purposes only, or user manuals where the language is quite simple and functional. We'd always recommend with any machine translation is investing in customized machine translation as opposed to raw machine translation. I'm going to come on to the distinction between those very shortly, but just wanted to kind of call that out for some context there as well. Level 2, so the middle level, is machine translation with human post-editing, which is essentially machine translation fully edited by a professional linguist to ensure accuracy, fluency, and regulatory compliance when that is appropriate for the content. Essentially, this type of content that can be suitable for this level is more creative content and more sensitive material that needs, as a bare minimum, one human checking it for accuracy. Examples where we've seen this be really quite useful for brands are training content, sales materials, and also social media content as well. And finally, the top level, where we always recommend for the best possible quality and the best possible ROI generation in terms of high impact stuff, is fully human translation. You might also be familiar with transcreation or multilingual copywriting. That all sits in this bucket here. As I said, various levels at each level, various options at each level. And this involves no AI or automation at all, using professional linguists from start to finish. Examples of where this is really helpful is highly creative and sensitive content, brand strap lines, outdoor campaigns, etc. So there's a lot of place for human translation, but just wanted to kind of give you the context of where the types of content might sit in the overall pyramid. For the purposes of today, we are going to be looking more at levels 1 and 2, but human translation is still very valid and still very recommended for a lot of use cases. So once you've got your content tiers created, it's important to actually look at then creating a robust strategy for your translations. And actually, categories of content is only step 1 of that process. So these are recommended 4 steps to putting in place a solid translation strategy internally before you even start translating en masse. Working with your translation partner is also a great place to start. You may also have the privilege of having an internal translation department. If so, they will also be great stakeholders to get involved in this journey. But we like to break it down for ease into 4 simple steps. So step 1, as I've been through already, is looking at your content and categorizing it, assessing the value of your content according to a list of criteria, and deciding then which translation approach to use, which is going to get you the most ROI efficient process. So that's very much step 1, followed by step 2. Step 2, once you've decided for each type of content you're translating what approach you're going to be taking in collaboration with your translation partner or stakeholders, is to then design the workflow. We're going to be looking later on in this webinar series around step 3, particularly looking at workflows for websites and e-commerce streams of work via continuous localization and plugins, but essentially working with your stakeholders and making sure that the actual workflow is efficient itself, includes the right stakeholders, you've got the right technology in place, and you're essentially making sure the process behind the scenes is as efficient as possible. And step 4 is running samples. So I cannot tell you how important the sample process is for translation, especially with any type of AI involved. AI output, even when edited by a human, will be different than fully human translation. So it's important to run sample tests on all of your content, working with your translation partner, and making sure that your stakeholders are happy with the content, and internally you feel these are going to generate the right ROI for you. If not, you can go back and try another translation approach. And when we work with our customers at Comtech, we often do 2 or 3 samples of different workflows for different types of content to give our clients the power of choice, which can be really, really helpful for getting the evidence there. So that's very much taking a step back and looking at putting a strategy in place. Now, in section 2 of that strategy, we talked about selecting the translation method. And as I mentioned earlier on, there are a lot of translation methods available now with AI in the loop. What I'd like to do is take a look at 3 common AI approaches and their use cases over the next few slides, and just give you some insights and actions about where these can be best used and where to perhaps avoid them or at least take some caution. So, first of all, what are these 3 AI translation approaches? So first of all, we have a raw machine translation. This is off-the-shelf AI translation with no editing or customization involved. Think press of the button, Google Translate style. Number two is what we call a Comtech MTAP, which is a lovely little acronym. There are lots in our industry, so we do apologize, but I will explain what that means. MTAP stands for Machine Translation with Automated Post-Editing. This is essentially customized machine translation, fully trained on your brand and your terminology, with the output refined in line with your glossaries and prompts. And thirdly, we have MTPE, another acronym, shock horror, which stands for Machine Translation with Human Post-Editing. This, as mentioned on the framework slide, is AI translation reviewed by a linguist to improve fluency and accuracy. So these are the three main ones we're going to be looking at today over the next few slides. AI content creation is also available. You may have experimented this with tools such as ChatGPT. That is going to be another session in our webinar series later on, looking at best practice on AI content creation and when it can have benefits. But for today, we're going to stick to translation in the spirit of you have English source content and you're looking at translating that for different languages. Again, before I dig in though to the three options, I'd just like to kind of share a bit of context about why so many marketing teams are using AI for translation. On the screen, I've broken down 4 AI service options. So machine translation with automated post-editing, machine translation with human post-editing, as well as 2 AI video solutions. So AI voiceover and AI subtitles, which coincidentally is going to be the topic of the next session, and looking at the typical cost and time savings that you can achieve via these methods in comparison to fully human translation. As you can see, there are some whopping time and cost savings. However, I will caveat that these solutions are not all going to be relevant for all of your types of content. And we'll come on to look at those on the next slide. So let's first have a look at MT, or as I'm going to call it for the purposes of this webinar, raw MT. So as a recap, what is raw MT? Raw MT is out-of-the-box AI translation with absolutely no customization and no human impact. So to put that into context, think of solutions that you might have tried like Google Translate and DeepL, or if you're working with a website CMS and they offer a website automated translation plugin, that as well. Essentially, it's very much press a button, hope for the best. And why is that risky? Essentially, as you've probably all tried in your personal lives or professional lives, it can produce literal awkward translations. I really recommend trying to translate stuff back into English and see what you get. It will not necessarily always be right. But what does that mean in a brand context? If you're using this method for your marketing content, you have zero control over what it says. You have no control over the brand voice, the terminology, or the context. For example, a fun example, in the past, I've seen raw machine translation translate cookie policies for your website as biscuit policies, which obviously is totally different depending on the context. But that's a good example of where raw MT going unchecked can really damage credibility and trust for your brand. Where I would recommend potentially using it is for in-house content. It's safer, you're not releasing it to the world, or if you are going to use it for any external content, make sure it's very low risk content and really only when speed matters more than the quality. I would not recommend it for any customer facing content, any brand or culturally sensitive material, or anything to do with compliance, legal, etc., where there could be a multitude of issues that result from this approach. So bottom line, raw machine translation is cheap and fast, and it's only suitable in limited cases. Now, you might be wondering why I'm talking about this in a marketing context. Well, the reason why is essentially to kind of benchmark this against the next 2 solutions I'm going to talk you through, which do have a positive impact for marketers and can be used with AI. So number 2, let's look at the first of our funny acronyms, which is MTAP. So as a recap, this stands for Machine Translation and Automated Post-Editing. Now, how Comtech go about your customized machine translation is actually a 3-stage process. This involves, first of all, customizing a machine translation engine for your brand based on your terminology into each of your target languages. As part of the workflow, the machine translation also picks up entries from the translation memory. If you're not familiar with what a translation memory, or TM, another acronym, is, a translation memory essentially is something that stores all of your translations within a translation environment that can be reused for future efficiencies, whether that's time, monetary, or consistency. So essentially, at the machine translation stage, we're customizing the output based on your terminology, but we're also leveraging what you've translated before, perhaps via human methods for extra quality levels. As part of that's the MT. Now let's look at the AP part of this process. So as part of this workflow, again, as mentioned, this is fully customized machine translation. This includes running the machine translation output that's come out of the MT engine and the translation memory through a large language model based and automatically post-editing it according to prompts and instructions that are designed for your brand. Again, there's no humans involved at that stage because it's simply automated. However, there are a lot of humans involved at the customization stage, and that's what is special about MTAP, and that's what makes it a much safer solution than raw MT, because a lot of groundwork has been put in to make sure the output is as customized as possible for your brand from an AI solution. So what's good about it? It can be customized to your brand, first of all, giving you better quality off-the-shelf machine translation content. It's fast and it's more affordable. But just remember, in terms of speed, we've also got to do setup at the start. So there may be some work to make sure the engine is and the prompting at the large language model stage are fully customized to your brand. But once it's up and running, it's up and running. It also offers consistency at scale if you're looking to scale translation across multiple departments. Now, this is proving very popular with brands, and I'd like to call out a few case examples of where we're seeing our clients really go for this. Knowledge bases, first of all, so customer service information, internal documentation for internal teams, so clients are investing in high quality full human machine translation professional translation for their marketing comms, but they're using this in other areas. E-commerce product descriptions are a great use case for machine translation and automated post-editing. The content can be customized to your brand. E-commerce product descriptions can be very repetitive in terms of the content itself. However, I would caveat that for luxury brands or high-profile products, you might want to get human review involved in them based on how creatively English has been written. But we'll come on to that on the next slide. Also, websites. We're working with a couple of brands now who are using MTAP, first of all, as placeholder text for their website. So in this scenario, they need to get a website launched very quickly. We can spend a week customizing the machine translation and populating their website with placeholder translations that are obviously much safer than raw machine translations, but then we follow up with populate a revision by using a human professional linguist to guarantee higher quality. We're also seeing brands, and I'm working with a couple of SaaS brands at the moment, who are mixing and matching their translation approach for their website based on the priority of the content. So high traffic pages or high priority pages might be subject to machine translation with human post editing, or fully human translation with the MTAP solution being reserved for low priority pages. Where we don't recommend it, though, is high-profile, creative, complex texts or campaigns. That's when the human touch is still really, really important. But this is a great solution when you've got lots of low-risk, high-volume content that you need to get translated. And finally, let's look at machine translation post-editing. So another acronym, MTPE, as a reminder, stands for Machine Translation and Human Post-Editing, which is a fully hybrid approach. Now, this essentially, in terms of a ComTech workflow, makes use of step 2, so machine translation automated post-editing as a baseline, followed by professional revision by a human linguist with experience in the subject matter, which is super, super important. It's a good halfway house between human and AI methods, and it's becoming increasingly popular. It's better quality than the 2 previous methods, but it's also faster and cheaper than fully human. So where we're seeing brands experiment with MTPE are websites and e-commerce content, high scale content that you need to get translated at speed, but also paid campaigns as well. Um, where we wouldn't recommend it again is super, super high profile stuff like taglines, anything that's creatively written, luxury copy. That's going to struggle with at the machine translation stage. And you may find that the post editor, the human actually spends longer editing it than they would translating it from scratch. So this is the perfect halfway house, and we're seeing lots of brands going for this. But just a reminder, the human solutions are always there um, as backup, or if you prefer them, or for your high profile content. Now, there are lots of ways to access these services. I just want to give you a very quick spotlight on our Pronto translation tool, which you'll come to understand why in a few slides' time. But Pronto is Comtech's self-service platform for accessing both MTAP and MTPE solutions. We offer these solutions as standalone projects or by fully integrated website processes or PIM system translations, which we'll come on to look at in a later webinar. But Pronto is a great tool for if you're looking for a self-service platform and in a non-integrated manner. It's available in 30 languages. There are limited licenses for people within your teams. There's free training and setup included as part of the project, sorry, as part of the process. And there are two solutions available, as mentioned. Pronto Auto Edit, which is included in the monthly subscription cost, which is the MTAP solution described previously. And you also have the option to upgrade to machine translation with human post editing for any content you wish. Additional costs do apply in that scenario. But for a baseline package, they start at $375 per month. We've also got some brands who are really interested in Pronto, and we have a couple of really exciting brands who are using Pronto for their translation needs. So let's recap on a few final things. So why does AI, first of all, still need human translation? AI is only as good as the human expertise behind it. And here's what professional linguist LSPs like Comtech do to make AI localization effective. First of all, we train the engine to speak your language. We pre-edit your source content to make sure it's as effective as possible with machine translation. We post-edit the AI output with care and expertise. We evaluate and iterate to make sure the content is as right for you as possible. And we protect your brand reputation and ensure trust from your consumers with human post-editing in the loop as well. So before we wrap up, here are my key takeaways for today. So content categorization is the first step to a solid translation strategy and unlocks the power of AI tools. Not all content is created equally, and your strategy regarding translation should involve a mix of approaches depending on your ROI and the content types. The three solutions we shared all have specific use cases and times they wouldn't be recommended. An AI tool is only as good as the linguist behind it. Make sure not to skimp on time. Sorry, my battery is running low. I don't know why. And leave time for your project to set up a sample. Finally, work with a partner who gets it, doesn't just sell translation. And remember, AI is not suitable for everything. Human localization is still the best approach for many types of marketing content. For our attendees, I have a couple of special offers to share with you. If you'd like to email freebie to my email address on the screen, you'll receive a PDF of our full guide on how to use AI to turbocharge marketing translations, along with a 1-month trial to Pronto, worth £375. You'll also, please feel free to pass on to friends and family. And as mentioned, everyone attending the webinar today will have access to our slides. So that is the end of my presentation today. Does anybody have any questions for me? Oh, thank you, Raphael. You just reminded me. My email address is jbrown@comtechtranslations.com. So I'll put that in the chat now. And please do get in touch if you're looking for that. Just pop that in there now for you. Tiziana asked a great question. So low resource languages. These are essentially languages that the powers that be who power these MT tools don't invest in. So a high resource language, for example, are English, French, Italian, Spanish. Chinese, Japanese, Korean, they are some real great examples of high resource languages. Low resource languages can be languages such as Turkish, some Eastern European languages, Bulgarian, for example, Hungarian, and perhaps some African and Middle Eastern languages as well. Perfect. Well, we have no questions apart from that one. So thank you very much, Tiziana, for your question. I really appreciate everyone for attending today. As mentioned, we'll be in touch in the next couple of days